Where is it? Let's see this thing that's shrouded in secrecy.
The Fuji X-T2.
There it is, the thing we're not allowed to talk about.
Let's talk about it. This is the Fuji X-T2. What they've done is they've done some phenomenal upgrades compared to the original model, the X-T1, which came out a little bit over two years ago.
Right.
I've been using the Fuji X-T1 now for probably about 18 months. Mm-hmm. It's always with me. Mm-hmm. It goes with me everywhere, and I love its compact size and its retro feel.
So in the time that the X-T1 came out, we've also seen the X Pro 2 come out.
Yes.
So where does the X-T2 fit in terms of the landscape between the X Pro 2 and the X-T1? What are we looking at here? Okay,
well, the X Pro 2 is a significantly different camera in the fact that it's more of a rangefinder style, where this is more mimicking that of a DSLR, where where you've got the actual prism finder. Now, obviously, this is not a prism finder. It is an EVF, which stands for electronic viewfinder. I think that's actually one of the big improvements that they've done on this camera. Actually, the EVF seems a lot brighter to me. That's my general impression over the old model.
But in terms of like the type of photographer who's going to use the X-T2 versus the X Pro 2 versus the X-T1, who's this made for?
I believe this camera is made for the person that is shooting with a DSLR now versus somebody that's already accustomed to using a rangefinder. So I think there's definitely two distinct markets there. It has a significant feature that I love about it for landscape photography is let's go to the back where we've got this little flip-up screen right here. So one of the coolest features about this screen that I find for landscape photography is when I'm on a tripod, I can go down to a very low angle and flip this up. And we can look right down to get very low angles, which I really enjoy doing a lot for landscape photography. Now, I've also found, and having that screen there allows you to kind of just look down at the camera while you're not really looking at your subject and kind of be a little bit sneaky about it.
Right. It's almost like a Rolleiflex kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
You can no one's really noticing when the camera's at your belly button.
Exactly. So I love this feature also for street photography. I think anybody that does street photography is going to love this. And one of the significant upgrades now between the X-T1 and the X-T2 is now you can also just flip this up like that.
Oh, that's really
So
cool.
we've got a vertical version of it now, so it can go vertical or horizontal.
What really excited you about this camera over the last week that you've had this?
I think Fuji's really listened to their pros out there, and I think they've really done a significant job of taking what photographers wanted and adding it to the second version of this camera. I think one of my biggest complaints about the X-T1 was the fact that when the camera was in the bag, my dials would just move around and they wouldn't lock very well. So they put a locking mechanism now right on the ISO dial. It locks. The ISO dial is actually a little bit bigger than it was before. And so is the shutter speed dial. It's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit more raised than it was before. Maybe that was done to accommodate the locking mechanism. Okay. The click stops are also a little bit harder than they used to be, so they lock better. But now it's locked, it won't move on you.
There are a couple new features for this camera. Let's first talk about maybe the sensor.
Yeah, we've jumped up 8 megapixels, so that's pretty significant as well. Going from 16 to 24, it's still APS-C. I do like to print my work, and I don't have any issues making like a 24 by 36 print with this camera.
And I understand that the sensor on here is the same as the X Pro 2, is it not?
It is the same sensor as the X Pro 2. To me, one of the greatest things that they grabbed from the X Pro 2 is that they've added in this little, I guess I'll call it a joystick. So I like to choose my focus point individually. I don't like the camera to do it for me. So when I'm working with my subject, whether it be a landscape or a portrait or what have you, I like to select my focus point. So
So
I believe they've upped the amount of focus points on the camera to 325. And there's pretty much a focus point anywhere you need it on the screen.
Yeah.
So another really cool thing that I find is, I think overall they made the body just a tiny bit larger. It fits my hand good. I have a pretty large hand. They actually, I don't know if we can see this, but this piece right here where your thumb goes, I believe that's been enlarged significantly, and it really feels like I can get a good grip on it now.
I think one of the selling features for photographers who like the DSLR system is they really like that hand grip, that really big wraparound, meaty hand grip. And but that certainly, when you pick up this camera, I noticed like it almost feels like a DSLR.
Yeah, it feels natural in your hands, like, ergonomically.
Like you've got a really good finger catch there, and the thumb catch is really solid. So I would say like definitely with any sort of professional shoot where you really needed good dexterity with the camera, it seems to be really, really well thought out.
Yeah. So one of the other really neat things about the camera now that it can do is all these command dials. Not only do they rotate, but they have a second function where if you push it in, there's lots of different ways to set up these command dials. So there's going to be lots of options for that. They've also done the same thing in the front with this front command dial. So not only can you turn it, but you can push it in for a second function.
Did you have any chance to test the uncompressed RAW images versus the JPEGs and to see what the difference was?
Absolutely. I brought the RAW files into Lightroom and they behaved perfectly. I was able to adjust them. The dynamic range on the RAW files was incredible. But that being said, the JPEGs, one of my favorite things about the Fuji camera in general is the JPEGs out of this camera are phenomenal. Some of the best I've ever seen, really. I can tell you a feature that's going to be coming that I haven't been able to test yet. It looks like Fuji's finally going to be giving us high-speed sync with their flash system. Now, a lot of photographers have been waiting for this feature. Now, high-speed sync, what that allows you to do is to shoot with your lenses wide open and turn your shutter speed up to like 4,000, 30,000th of a second so that you can be outside and get a really beautiful bokeh and also just dial down your shutter speed and your flash will still sync. So this is a feature that's been lacking with the Fuji camera system so far, but it's coming and it's going to be very exciting for the pros out there, especially wedding photographers. So it's going to be a really cool feature.
Yeah, so let's sum this up. I would say that definitely from a videographer or a cinematographer's point of view, it's not really ready for the filmmaking community, I don't think yet, but I think from a photojournalism and a video journalism perspective, it's probably one of the best cameras on the market. There's no question about it. But what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are this. I think Fuji listened to the pro market, and I think they're going to get a lot of new people out there shooting with this camera, the X-T2. This camera for me brings me back to my early days of photography. When I first started out as a photographer, my very first camera where it had a shutter dial and it had ISOs and everything had to be chosen manually, and I like the way that feels. It's comfortable for me, so I don't have to go searching through menus to change my ISOs or changing function buttons, but yet if I do want to set that up, it's there. So we have that option as well. Yeah. So they've done a great job. Sign me up, I'm waiting for mine.